On our latest episode of the Breakthrough Autism podcast, I'm thrilled to have with us Piera Defina, Director of Family Services at Breakthrough Autism. She's been with us for almost 10 years. I'm also so proud to call her my sister. Piera, welcome.
Thank you.
Wonderful to have you here. And one of the reasons why I was so excited to have you on the show is because you came into the field of ABA and working with kids with autism and their families from a really unique direction, social work. It's something that we don't often see in our field, but yet at the same time, I really feel is such a key element to the success at Breakthrough. The collaboration of, many different professionals, many of them being from behavior analysis, but we have some folks from other fields, including social work. And in terms of your role, it's particularly dynamic with respect to how it intersects with families and also staff that we have. And it's led to some tremendous outcomes. At the end of the day, outcomes for kids, because that's what it's all about. So want to share some of that with people listening today and how this has all come to be and, how it all amounts to some wonderful successes. In terms of you being with us for 10 years, this is remarkable. In many professions now, this is almost unheard of these days. And especially because you didn't come into it seeking to be a professional in behavior analysis. So I think one of the interesting things is you've stuck with it for a long time. And the question is why? Why be in the field of autism and working with kids and families and staff for 10 years? What drives you to do the work that you do?
So I've always known professionally this is something that I wanted to do. The other why, or the other, I think, factor that really drives me and motivates me in the work I do now is also it's the power of what we do, to be honest, the power of ABA. Witnessing the positive impact it's having on children, their families, and also I imagine their communities.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's kept me here for those 10 years. It's that combination of working with children and families, wanting to help contribute to what I hope is a meaningful change, and then being part of a team that is making that change.
Seeing that impact.
And seeing that impact, or helping facilitate that change. Because ultimately it's the children and it's the families that are making the change. It's not us. We're just kind of we're facilitating it through what I would say is the power of ABA.
And to be a part of that, we're so blessed because I really believe in having spoken to so many people who have all sorts of different jobs out there, that we are so lucky to do something that we really feel is making a difference. Not everyone's blessed with that. Mm-hmm. And we spend so much time in our jobs, across our lifespan. Why not do it in something that is going to make a meaningful impact? And to be able to witness that and see that is an incredible driver for so many of us. I feel the same way. But even taking it beyond that and taking it up a notch, you work like I've never seen anybody work, which is we're so lucky and blessed to have you working with us. You've got late nights where you're committed to, even though we tell you, Piera, you don't need to. You're like, I got to get this done. Or we recently opened up a second site, and you were really instrumental in getting that off the ground. There was a lot of persistence and pushing through a lot of moments that I really believe we wouldn't have gotten it to open without you. And I'm sure on the other side of that can't always be easy to, be asked for things in so many different directions. And I know you were working on this, but I don't know, the alarm's going off in the building that's empty and I don't know what's happening there or whatever else is happening. We have an unexpected surprise. And you just, pivot with a smile on your face and you get it done. So what fuels that? What is that? How can we bottle that and spread it around the world? Because that's not all easy, right? How do you push through those moments for you?
Wanting the best for the families that we work with. I have 2 children of my own. I would hope that any service provider, anyone that they come in contact with over the course of their lifetime in a helping profession, mm-hmm. that's someone that they're coming from the same place. So I want to give that out because I want it for my children. I want it for myself. And so, yeah, that's what I think really drives me. It's it's just wanting the best experience possible for families, for children, and then also for staff as well. And so I think that it's like no job's ever perfect, of course, but that's why I think it's really important that I come from this place of like wanting, um, the job is so connected to like a personal passion of mine.
Yeah, and setting the standards by which you would want to receive
Yeah.
services or care for your children or your family. You want to be able to, put that out in the universe, in our community,
And try
that
to give that.
try to give that yourself. I often think of that too, like, in so many different directions. Like, my children don't have special needs,
Mhm.
but if they did need any help or support in whatever way, even in school, they need to learn, or, in any facets of their life, how would I want them to be treated or supported? Or would I want any of my staff working with one of my kids? Absolutely. Like, I can stand by that, right? We have those standards. From the staff's perspective, I think this is something that is really unique, like in our roles in terms of supervisors, managers, directors, that it takes it up a level, because to fuel the staff enables like a ripple effect, right?
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
can, if they're fueled and we can support them, it's about supporting them too. But even beyond that, also leads to like best outcomes for the kids and the families and the community, right?
Yeah, I think you can't have one without the other. I take great pride in the high level of services that I believe we provide and that I've heard from parents that we provide. And I think a huge part of that is obviously the staff working directly with the children and feeling supported, and getting training as needed.
Yeah. So if there's that like late night email to staff to arrange, CPI or crisis prevention intervention, we got to get that done, because that's going to help the staff, it's going to help the kids. Absolutely. Even though, like you said, like it can be tough, like no job is ever perfect and we push through that all, but to get to that other side is a beautiful thing,
Mhm.
especially with a person like yourself who hasn't come again through that traditional route. You're coming through the lens of social work. So how did you get here? You didn't follow well, many of us didn't, but even a traditional path, in the sense of building upon, schooling within ABA and then clinical practice. This was, a different route, a different path leading to you, being at an ABA center for kids with autism. So how did that happen? How did you get here?
So it started off me studying after high school, went straight into studying a Bachelor of Social Work. And then from there, pursued a master's because I felt like, okay, this is my niche. Like this is the field, the profession I see myself in. It's social work. And from the master's program, I was fortunate in that I got some international experience, um, providing like clinical services to children and families. Because again, this was a passion of mine. That I always knew that was going to be my focus within the field. And so I thought, okay, I thought maybe being on the clinical side in providing like counseling services, I thought that's where that was kind of like my calling, or that's where that was going to be my focus career wise until however long. And it was wonderful experience internationally. Even within there, I um, I think about like we also offered even on top of, let's say, the individual or family counseling sessions, we also offered specialized programming. Let's say during a March break, or they wouldn't call it March break. There'd be a different name for it, perhaps, or during the summer. For sure, there was some like a summer break camp where we would do some specialized services. And so that was really great. I really enjoyed working there, and enjoyed the team and the supervisor I had there. And then, but there came a point where my husband and I, um, we got to the point in our life where we're like thinking about having a family, and we wanted to be closer to our families for that, like during a time in our lives. So we moved back to Toronto. And from there, I started working again with families. This time, though, with children that are slightly older, so the teens and their family, in again a more counseling type of role. And then from there, um, that's the opportunity at Breakthrough came to be. And actually, it's so interesting because it actually came at a time where it started off part-time. It was at a time I wasn't exactly sure what the next step in my career would be. And so I tried to be open because I wasn't sure. So I was like, okay, so let's take this time and just maybe reflect on what I'm looking for, what's important to me. And what are the experiences that bring me joy professionally? And so there was an opportunity at Breakthrough part-time. And then to help kind of pay the bills, I took on another part-time job. Or actually, I think I might have gotten that one first. I can't remember the sequence of events. But anywho, I also took on a part-time job with a nonprofit doing after-school programming and helping them there. Over my time there, they did also actually, I think they opened another site. And so I was just there like as the staff. Like I wasn't as involved at all in any of the procurement or like physically opening the center or anything, but it was just like, this is going to be a new site and we'd love for you to be part of the team there. Sure. So as those two part-time jobs, as I worked those two part-time jobs, there came a point where I was so fortunate because I really felt like my love for the work at Breakthrough was growing as it was at the other place as well. But at Breakthrough, I also felt like the workload was growing. And so there was more opportunities there as well. And in the end, within the first year, I believe, I was offered a full-time position. And then from there, I am here now.
Amazing. It just grew, it evolved. Even from like an organizational standpoint, like I started Breakthrough. We didn't know, what it would evolve into. We just started it with the love and passion of, making a meaningful difference in children's lives and building skills that matter to them and their families and their community, and reducing any challenges that they may be experiencing. And hey, if we can do it for a couple kids, great. And then a couple home based, and then we moved to a center, and it just evolved. Like, and hey, now there's more. It really just came out of like doing really good work, and all of a sudden, oh, we got more kids, and hey, Piera, we could use some help here if you're interested. And then, well, it's not just part-time help anymore; it's full-time. Like, it really evolved. And for people who may be watching, maybe professionals or students, like early in their careers or trying to figure out a career, your path is really a demonstration of following passion and love for, what you do. And in your case, really helping others and how that manifested itself. But like, it's okay not to have a direct path. Like, it's actually, I think, probably unconventional to have a direct path. But the key is to allow yourself to pursue that, right? To be okay with just exploring what's out there. And then when you contact something that, okay, this is like, really jiving with me, and as my daughter would say, vibing with me, and or I'm vibing with it, or however you say it, but it resonates, right? So you don't always know what that's going to be. It was very similar to me in my career. I didn't set out to, be in behavior analysis. Back then, most people didn't even know what it was. And I was studying my Bachelor of Science at McMaster and thought maybe I was going to be in medicine. And like many people do, they go there. Then I hated organic chemistry, so it all fell apart. And my friend comes home, one of my housemates, 6 other girls that I lived with, one of them came home with a flyer from some professors who were looking for people to work with kids with autism. At the time, most people didn't even know what autism was. The rates were nowhere near where they are today, somewhere between 1 in every 5 to 10,000. I didn't really know what it was, but I did like working with kids, and I enjoyed the science of learning, and thought, had a special affinity for kids with special needs. Okay, I'll just try it. Who knows? Start working on Saturdays as a second-year undergrad, waking up after Friday nights, But hey, it was worth it. It was really, it just evolved, right? And I didn't know where that was going to lead. I didn't know that was going to lead into a career. People were asking me what I'm going to do with my life, including some family members. Where are you going? And I don't know. I just, this is great. Like I'm doing something that matters with a child. So, to your point, to my experience and many of our experiences, for those that aren't really sure, you don't need to have that all carved out. I think you just really need to know what drives you. One of my mentors, Dr. Bridget Taylor, said once on a panel discussion, and I don't even know if she'll remember saying this, but I was early on in my career and it really made an impact for me. She said, you got to really identify what your reinforcers are. It's so important for your professional career. And then really seek to come in contact with those daily. Like, this is something that can really drive you. And I feel like we're all so blessed at Breakthrough to contact those. Even though the work is hard, we contact these amazing successes. And if that's what gets you excited, then it doesn't mean it doesn't come without work. Like, there's a lot, you do a lot to get there. We've talked about it a bit and we'll talk about it more, but that can drive you, even if you're not a behavior analyst working in the field for other people. And you've had a lot of successes within, using your skills.
I think what it does is it brings with it this valuable like toolkit with all these skills that are so that can help contribute to a positive change in a variety of environments. So what are some of these tools or these skills? I think one would be like active listening. It's something that I remember as an undergrad. I think that's when I first came across the term active listening. Truly just take a moment and to hear what the person speaking with you is saying, and like to hear their story. And then like this, how you do that and so on and so forth, but which I won't get into the logistics about today. But yeah, so active listening. I think also connecting to resources. The role at Breakthrough, I think that's more, perhaps I do that more internally, not so much externally, but helping families and staff connect with resources that they're looking for, or at least that I think may support a need that they've expressed having. Also advocacy. It's a huge part of social work too, advocating for your clients, advocating for those that you're working with. That's also a skill I think I've used in my role as well, which I would attribute to my social work background. And what else? There's so many. I think those are maybe like the main three. I'm probably forgetting some other major ones, but I think coming in studying social work, I mean, I studied it both at an undergraduate level and then a master's level. The reason I did that, I think one of the main, it's because it's such a diverse field to study. You really can. I didn't realize, like, I think I had a bit of a sense when I was studying just how versatile the degree can be. But I think since graduating and really getting into my career in different environments, I'm like, wow, yeah, that's really neat. Like social work's brought me here.
Yeah. The applications of it really
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
in terms of like
Utilizing it.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you can apply it even just within your daily job, as you've expressed, like the kids, the families, the staff, there's so many, and how you integrate that all too.
And the active listening too, because I think that maybe more traditionally that may be thought of a skill that you use in clinical or counseling work. And I would say you can use it every day. Like there's just so many other ways it can be used. It doesn't have to be restricted to the counseling environment.
Absolutely. It's something like that it's a part of a package that I'm very passionate about. Studied in my doctorate and did research on compassionate care, because a lot of people in behavior analysis get really strong technical training on how to develop children's skills. If they're working with kids with autism, not everybody works with kids with autism, but if you're working with kids with autism, you're looking at skill development, reduction of any, challenging behavior. And all of that is very important. But taking it a step back, one of the things that we can borrow from a lot of different fields, and especially social work, there's a lot of important research and application in terms of compassionate care. Active listening is part of that. And being able to, I think it what affords you, and you've shown this like in your regular day-to-day job, is you have the opportunities to hear if things are going well, great. But also if there's things that are tough for a family or a staff or whomever, it gives you those opportunities. And then we can act on them, right? Like that's the other piece, is like now we can do, maybe we're not going to solve or support every aspect of a child's development or family's needs or staff needs, but being able to identify it and then look for ways to support it that we may or may not do. We can also refer, we can adjust. You do a lot of things within your role that's around being flexible and figuring out like how can we best provide service provisions under all sorts of different circumstances. And if we can't, that's okay. Then we can say, let's explore other options. We don't need to be the end all and be all for families. But a lot of that is, I think the social work perspective comes into play because we may miss it as behavior analysts. Like, we're really sometimes focused on the trees, we're focused on particular details that are important, but you can sometimes miss the forest when you do that. And so, we're very lucky that you're able to sometimes like alert people or, hey, I noticed this like in their background history, or a parent said this to me, or even just seeing a similar experience at the center with a parent at drop off or whatever. Staff or supervisors, we may notice one thing and then you're like, did you see that, like,
Mhm, mhm.
I don't know, maybe somebody should call that mom and make sure that that's working out, or whatever that might look like. Check in. So I think that's really amazing for people that are in the field to think about how other professionals can be integrated, social work included, to enhance the family's experience and ultimately lead to best outcomes for that child. Because that's really that's what we're in this for.
100%.
And so you've been able to do that. You've experienced successes at our center in terms of, outcomes for kids. What are some highlights for you in that realm of successes that you've seen uh, manifest through our services?
Oh, there's so many, and they, like, fill my heart, and sometimes I get emotional talking about them. I know it probably sounds super cheesy, but I do. So what are some, I would call them almost like superstar moments. Um, I remember, so, like, the office I work at, what like, our location on 16, like, is, the office there, it's right next to the waiting area. So often I hear, just the dynamics of happening of just, regular drop-off or pickups. Um, like, families literally bringing their child to the center. And, long ago, before we had the 2 sites, um, I remember, just over, probably answering some emails or something one morning, and then I just hear this, like, little almost like angelic voice from the waiting area, just starting to sing, daddy finger, where are you? Here I am, here I am." For those who know nursery rhymes, you'll be familiar with it. Maybe that's gonna get stuck in your head now. But and I stopped, like, whatever I was doing, and I had to peek around the corner because I was just, "What? This is like the cutest, sounds like the cutest thing." So I wanted to see what was happening, and it was one of our clients waiting. I think they had arrived a couple minutes early for their session, and they were waiting in there with one of their grandparents, and they were just, spontaneously singing a nursery rhyme and doing the actions with a loved one, to spend their time, those few minutes. And it brought me so much joy, and it filled my heart because, of course, that's just on paper, that would be a cute moment to hear about or to see. But I had I know a little bit more about the client because, they're there when I'm working, and I've passed through the classroom where they've been, part of circle time, learning how to, for lack of a better term, like, participate in circle time, be able to sit there and have a meaningful participation in singing songs and doing fun activities, with their peers. And it was just so cute that morning. I just remember that. And that one really still sticks out, even though it was years ago. I remember also one time seeing a client say goodbye to their mom from the waiting area. They were just about to transition into the main kind of treatment space, and they handed their mom spontaneously. They handed their mom a little PEX card, which I'll let you explain if you want a little bit more. A little card with a heart that said "I love you" on it, and that was just such a magical moment to see a child who I believe they started services with their communication skills were a bit more limited. And so to initiate that expression to their parent was such a beautiful thing.
It's amazing. Yeah. And for those that don't know, PECS, or the Picture Exchange Communication System, is a system that we use for children that, or we teach the kids to use, I should say, who may be non vocal or have very limited vocalizations, challenges in communication. And it's empowering for them because that's their voice, and they learn to exchange pictures as a part of their communication. Some may move on to more sophisticated devices that are on iPads and different ways of communicating, but many of them start with those pictures and the exchange. And so there's so many levels that that story has such incredible impact, right? Like, one is, here is a child who um, would not have been able to express really anything if they didn't have this system, right? And that can lead to all sorts of challenges in life. I always believe that, this is one of those areas that comes down to like our human rights. Like, we should be able to express our wants and needs. It's a fundamental skill that all humans should be able to have, even if they can't vocalize. It doesn't matter. And so here is this little child who's able to do so. And then it's just so beautiful because it takes it up a notch for me, because as a parent, like, we get the joy of hearing our children at some points in their life, although I have teenagers now, so I don't hear it as much, but it's okay, it'll come back. Expressions of love and connection with us, and we can do the same. It can be reciprocal. It's important what connects us as a family. And, we hear from a lot of families that this connection, can be hard with the diagnosis. It doesn't mean that the child doesn't want to connect. It doesn't mean that the parents don't want to connect. It's just there are barriers sometimes, and communication can be a barrier. So to allow for these moments to happen, which we may take for granted as part of typical development, we get to hear this stuff. But here's this family who, you know, we've heard from other families, like, they maybe even say, like, we're never going to have this moment. Like, maybe even given up on the opportunity for their child to express their love for them. They may say at some point, because this child was much older than the phase where you may hear this kind of stuff from kids. So, we're talking like 5, 6 years old, and parents have never heard, those type of expressions. They may think, well, it's just never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. And for this child to be able to, on their own,
Yeah.
give that picture, "I love you," to their mom, it's just magical. It's incredible. That's a gift that, it doesn't matter, what you can give somebody in life. That is, like, there's no words, there's nothing, there's no better reward than that, to be able to empower that child and that family to connect. It's such a beautiful, beautiful story about that family and that child.
And even just on the note, like, going off of, like, helping children with connection, I remember, also speaking with a mom once who expressed their gratitude to me for the services that we provide, the specialized especially this particular skill building program we were providing their son online, as it was a means for him to connect with his peers. And this is a little while, like a few years ago during COVID, when a lot of services were not open and schools were closed, and many children were not able to interact with their peers, or even see them, right? And so that mom, I remember one day speaking with her, and she was just like, "Thank you so much, essentially for pivoting services during this unusual time, because what it's given my son, what it's given my family." Like was just having, as I imagine, many people were, having challenges around like isolation, not, being out of your regular routine. And then, so just, we were able to, it was, fortunately for us, because of the nature of our services, we were able to, and the, the research we did on PPE and all that jazz, we were able to reopen, maybe sooner than some other places to resume in-person services, because it was just so crucial, I think, for the clients and families that we service. But in that time where it wasn't, and there was online services available, to hear that like to hear what that meant for a family and what that meant for this little boy was really powerful. And I remember just feeling such joy, like, and warmth in my heart, just speaking with that parent, after she had also told me some of the challenges that the family had been going through, or that their son had been experiencing in light of all these changes in the world, and their home life and school and so on and so forth. So, and then two other stories about clients. One is, I remember years ago we had a client that started services, and again, because I usually work close to the waiting area, I often say hi or bye to the kids and families. And I remember when this one little client started, he wouldn't really interact too much with me, and that's all right too. Like, I'm not here to force anything upon him, but he'd maybe like give me the odd little grunt to acknowledge my presence, or like, okay, hey, how you doing? Okay, we'll see you later. And then, so he's going about, he's doing his treatment, family's involved, doing the parent coaching, parent meetings, and as I pass the classrooms from time to time, I see some of the meaningful, I think, change in this one client. And then I remember one day, so I used to have my computer bag used to be like on wheels, so it kind of looked like a mini luggage, like it looked like a little, like I was. And I remember one day I had arrived after he arrived, and he saw me come in, and he saw me roll in my little bag, and he goes, "Piera, hi Piera, are you going to the airport?" And I said, no, why do you ask that? And he goes, "Your bag." And I was like, oh my gosh, it does look like luggage. And I was like, it just made me laugh, because I thought back to it's not even about his ability to vocalize, like the verbal communication he was expressing, but like how cool, like that connection he made. Yeah. And the inquiry, the curiosity that he expressed. I don't know. I think that's what that to me was pretty cool. And it really made me laugh, because I was like, I do look like either I'm traveling, or maybe that day I could have even had, I don't remember, maybe I was more formally dressed. I don't know, maybe I'm like, do I look like a flight attendant? I don't even, because you always see them, or the pilots, they have the little bag.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. And one of the things, that characterizes autism is there's different symptoms, but one of the overarching categories is that it's a social communication disorder. So this is something that I work a lot with families on to explain, and the general public. It's not just about lack of communication as in itself, because that can be a challenging experience that children need to work through and on its own, but it's the social communication. It's the integration of communication into the social environment. And that example for that child really exemplifies how, through the power of ABA and getting treatment, that you have this child spontaneously, all your examples, spontaneous examples, which is amazing, be able to have a socially connected moment with someone that integrates things in the environment, like the little wheelie there's some reciprocity, you're asking a question, he's answering. Like, there's so many pieces to that, this is like the dream actually for a lot of families when their child is in the early stages of diagnosis, is to get to the point where they can navigate their social world Why? Because it leads to independence, it leads to a better life, it leads to relationships,
Yeah.
all things that are key indicators of happiness in life. And that kid got there because of ABA. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And he did it on his own. Like he just did it. He just
Yeah, just yeah.
going for a trip. Okay, amazing. That's amazing.
And then just on the your note about independence too. It reminds me of my last kind of success story on the client and that I'll share today. Um, so I remember recently I was passing the kitchen area at our teen site, and I hear a voice. I don't know, maybe I like singing because these half of my stories now involve someone singing, but I hear this more mature voice singing the steps or essentially describing how he's washing dishes. And I peek in the kitchen and lo and behold, there's one of our clients, a teen, washing dishes. And he is like, not just washing dishes and not just kind of singing a tune, but he's singing a tune that's, you can see it's coming from his heart. Like there's a sense of joy in what he's doing. And which is just so incredible because that could be incredible for so many different reasons. But here's someone taking what could otherwise be a mundane task and finding joy in it. That's really cool. But then also looking at it from like a bigger picture, I'm like, here is an example of a teen, of one of our clients, working towards becoming and successfully doing it more and more independent. Because isn't that really ultimately, although it might be hard at times, what we want for our children is to support that development so that maybe one day they don't need us as much, and they can do things on their own. And then from that too, what a sense of confidence that can build in somebody. And so I really, that day, seeing that interaction with his instructor or supervisor, I forget who he was working with, while he was doing those dishes. But boy, did it fill my heart. And a part of me just wanted to go up and, congratulate him on or just thank him for bringing this feeling of joy. I felt like it filled definitely that kitchen, if not the whole center. And then also, as I do help with hiring, on a kind of more of a joke, but I'm just like, do you want to are you looking for an opportunity? Maybe you could be the one teaching this.
For sure. Make it fun. And
he's making it fun. And that's a really standout experience for me in how ABA learning at Breakthrough, based on the principles of ABA, it can be fun. It can feel natural. It can be fun for all those involved. It's hard. It can be hard. It's hard work. There's no doubt about it. But it can be applied and carried out in these natural, fun ways. Come out.
we integrate kids' interests and look for natural opportunities for sure for teaching. And then we look for even more. We create opportunities. And sometimes, like in this example, you have the teen himself making it fun and natural.
He took it to the next level. I don't think that was part of the program to incorporate a song.
He just made his own jam and, rocked out. Good for him.
Oh, man, I love that.
Amazing. Those examples are so good in so many different respects in terms of forming connections with people that matter to them and their family, all very natural and spontaneous. The learning is something that's enjoyable, albeit, it's real and there are tough times too. It's not just like any learning, even when you go to school, there are things that you have to learn that may be a little tough, you might not like so much, but we look to integrate that into successes for the kids. And a lot of the things that we've just talked about really debunk a lot of ABA myths. This is if you're wondering, you hear out there oh, ABA is a little rigid or robotic, or we're trying to change kids. Absolutely not. It is the opposite. It is empowering. It is natural. It's meaningful.
It's being customized it's a program being customized to a child's strengths, challenges, goals a family may have for their child and for their family. It's finding, ways of teaching skills that are that outcomes will be meaningful for the family. And how do we do that? Well, we also want to make it fun. We want to be reinforcing,
Yeah.
utilizing. We often ask parents like, what are things your child loves? It's part of our like what we call like a pre-assessment package, getting to know their child a little bit more. So then, and what are the goals that are important to your family? And then, from my understanding, we take that information. I'm not on the clinical side, but that's what is one of the elements that goes towards customizing the programming. And that's why every child's program can look so different, even if they're trying to learn the same skill.
All game changing for sure. In terms of families, right? Because you worked with a lot of families on the intake end in particular and throughout services. But you've, intersected with a lot of families that are early in their treatment journey, whether their child's 2 or their child is 15.
Yeah.
And they're looking for services, right? This is something that's for some has been described to us as very daunting. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know where to go. I don't know where to begin. So what advice would you have for families in terms of organizations or, from a lens of like how to navigate the world of like providers and what to do? Because this is a question we get a lot, beyond just our community. This goes Ontario, Canada, North America, and beyond. From your experiences, what are some thoughts that you would share for families when it comes to navigating services?
I think my first, maybe perhaps piece of advice, if for lack of a better term, um, and I say this because I come from a place I don't want to add to anybody's stress, but I really do think like doing your research, do your homework as much as you can. That homework looks very different for each family and what they can do or what resources they have access to. But as much as you can research. So like I'm speaking with like if they're looking for an ABA provider, let's say, right? So do your research. Not all, I often say to families, and I even actually find myself often for whatever reason, it comes up in interviews with potential staff as well, that um, organizations, there's many ABA providers out there. We can all work from the same, based upon the same principles of ABA. But what that looks like in each place is going to look so different. So you want to be sure that the place you're choosing is the right fit for you. And how do you know that? Well, you do your research. What does that look like? So one thing I would recommend if you're in looking for a provider is, you want to go with someone who has the qualified staff.
Yeah.
There, you want someone with when it comes to ABA, a BCBA. Definitely, if not one, maybe more than one, depending on the capacity of the program. What else? Also, like think about when if you're coming across websites or doing your research, like are there certain places that speak more to you when it comes to their mission or their approach? I do think you can. Of course, it can be helpful to speak directly with someone about that, but then I think you can get an initial sense maybe off of like websites or other information. Can also be nice if you know anyone receiving similar services. Of course, their experience, like no two children are alike, but maybe someone can tell you what they like about what the services they're getting, maybe some of the limitations that can help inform you. And then the other thing is I can't stress enough the value of quality when it comes to services. And what I mean by that is like, each provider, the structure of their program can look different. The way staffing works can look different. Some have contract workers versus full employees, so on and so forth. Some have one BCBA, some have multiple, whatever it may be. Some might have a psychologist on the team, some may not. So sometimes I hear from parents, they get really focused on like the price of service. How much is this going to cost? And I totally get that. I have, like I said, I have 2 kids of my own. And just in general, even especially in this climate right now, gosh, we are trying to, I think many people, or I'll speak for myself, like I'm trying to stretch my dollar as far as it can go, right? Like I want to know, they try to, budgeting in certain ways and stuff like that. But with quality, when it comes to ABA, it's been my experience that even if you start services, and you're only able to afford a few hours, I don't know, like maybe going with one place for 3 hours versus another place for 6 because of your budget. If that place that you could without, I guess, like, um, underservicing you, like, not, like, getting enough treatment for your child, which I think you could maybe speak more about, but, is that there could be tremendous value in those 3 hours if that organization, which maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but it has that more specialization on their team.
Yeah.
If yeah, I don't know if I'm describing that properly, but it's really just I want parents to think about the value. What are they getting for what they're paying for? And like the quality, sorry, maybe not value, it's more about quality of services because it's not the same across the board in any industry. This is not specific to ABA. Yeah, so yeah, one thing I would recommend for parents to think about is perhaps prioritizing quality of services in when they're doing their research. So, for example, if you think about if you're thinking of two different providers, one you have the impression that they are going to be delivering or have a higher quality of services that are perhaps at a little slightly higher price. So maybe you'll be able to afford few less hours versus a place that you could afford more hours, but there's not as much. Maybe the quality may not be as high when it comes to the actual treatment. I would recommend, going with the prioritizing the place that's gonna be offering the higher quality because every moment can really count, and when you have the quality there, you don't necessarily need as much time, let's say, right? So you can still achieve certain outcomes, I think, or goals that you may be looking for your child and family, um, when you again, when you are focusing on quality.
And there are nuances here that are really important for people that are watching to know that absolutely, like, treatment hours is important, right? So absolutely. So, but there's a nuance here because sometimes we get stuck on that, right? We say, okay, it's like if a child needs comprehensive ABA, they need 20 hours a week. That's what that child needs. And we couldn't agree more. But within those hours, it's not the hours themselves, it's what's done with those hours
Mhm.
that really drives a child's success, right? And we know that we actually have research on this, that it's not just throwing the hours at the child that will, you can try different treatments at certain hours, right? That are not evidence based or eclectic, we call it sometimes. You don't see the same impact. Now, unfortunately, for those that are watching, in Ontario in particular, and some other jurisdictions too, parents are faced with these tough decisions because funding is limited.
Yes.
And so now they have to figure out, well, what can I do?
Yes.
Right. So even if okay, so we'd like this to be the benchmark, we can't always achieve whatever that is. So different kids have different needs. They can have focused ABA, which is less hours, comprehensive ABA. They can also maybe use some consultative ABA, which is on the lower end. So that ideally is driven by child need. But now we have this extra complication of, okay, like you said, these challenges around like figuring out what can I do with my dollars, right? Finances are a challenge and we get that, right? But I think the word of caution that you are providing is that it's not just the dollar value, it's what you get from it. And if you don't get the quality, it's like sometimes I say to families, you might as well just take that money and flush it down the toilet. It doesn't matter if it's 20 hours, it has to be according to certain benchmarks of quality. And you've talked about actually some of them being the technical piece, right? Make sure you have the right supervisors in place.
Yeah.
Supervision is huge. It's the first thing I see actually to go. If something's going to go because you need the staff, a major issue is because the supervisors are graduate level trained and up. Okay, cut the supervision time. You cut the supervision time, you might pay less, but you ain't getting the customization that your child deserves. You're not getting the high quality. So this is so important for people to consider. So that's like one piece of quality. Okay, minimum standards and then beyond. Then you have what you talked about, like the goodness of fit, right? Like what
Yeah.
works for you have to think about that too. Is the schedule work? Do I, have that professional relationship where I see the perspective of that developing with this agency, right? So that has to be taken into consideration. All the research stuff that you said, I would say to families, we get it, like especially early on in diagnosis, one of the things that families get advice on is, okay, you can help your child, get them into ABA treatment. This is amazing. Like, okay, they just want to go because understandably so, they want to help their child.
Mhm.
It's okay to take a minute back and do the research, right? Like that's an important piece. And take a breath, figure it out. Yes, we're not going to minimize that it's a massive task
Yeah.
to do, but take the time to do it because again, quality. So all this feeds back to quality, right? Like the technical expertise, the goodness of fit. What are you getting from that provider for that? You've got to compare apples to apples.
100%.
So these are all really important considerations, especially unfortunately when you have to make tough funding decisions. But think about what is going to drive the best outcomes for your child. And it's not just the hours per week. Hours per week without the backing of technical and other soft skills expertise and flexibility within the schedule, whatever you need to work for you, it's just not going to work. And that's a travesty because it's an investment in your child's future. That's how I look at it. Whether or not a child in a family is getting funding, it if they're paying out of pocket, if they're getting funding, this is an investment. We want to see a return. What's the return on your investment? Your child making meaningful gains. That's the key because we know they can. Absolutely. So those are all like really good things for families to think about. And you've had a lot of experience with families on the front end and now even throughout services, having sometimes have to make tough decisions.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's another um, aspect of the services at Breakthrough that I think is really, really great and exemplary is the flexibility within the schedule. Because I've heard from parents that that's not always available from all providers. Which again, it's no judgment. It's just that everyone runs their business differently. And again, in trying to meet parents where they're at and trying to really help their child the most that we can. I often hear back from parents, it's like, oh, that's really neat. So we can do like we can adjust the start time, or like not all the kids have to start at 9 a.m. and have to do a full day, or oh, so he can come or they can come for half the day and then go to school after. Yeah. Or oh, okay, yeah, if we can do a bit of later because we are traveling from like a little bit far. So it'd be helpful if, their child could still wake up at the same time every day.
For sure. Those are all considerations for goodness of fit. The other big question we get from families is around staffing,
Yeah.
right? Of course, understandably so. What's your team? What are their
Yeah.
qualifications? All that kind of stuff. So you do a lot of the hiring and help us, uh, get staff that are a really good fit for us.
Mhm.
What are for people considering getting into the profession, but also from a family lens, because we get questions about this. What are important qualities? And again, I mean, there's clinical stuff we can think about. I can ask, you know, a lot of behavior analysts that question, but from your lens too, looking at effectiveness of treatment and best child outcomes, what are important things to look at when it comes to staff? What makes a good staff?
Yeah, great question. I think actually I get this question a lot in interviews from candidates as well. Like, what are you looking for what makes an ideal candidate? And I think sometimes, more often than not, I feel like they're looking for like really specific details like, okay, you've studied this, you've done this, like you've ticked off these particular boxes, whether it be skills or knowledge. And in my experience at Breakthrough over the 10 years, and maybe even beyond that, but more so Breakthrough because that's where I've really been more involved in hiring. What my experience has been and what I've come to learn is I think you can teach someone just about anything, like skill wise. Technical skills are teachable no matter what. What you can't teach somebody, which I think is so important when it comes to a quality service provider, finding a staff that's the best fit for the team. One is, again, is like passion for the work. It's a passion, some desire in them to be there, to be making a meaningful change, whether it be because of their desire to, or like a passion for working with children, which we've talked about, helping facilitate meaningful change with families. But it's that like internal burning passion. I think that's is a huge thing I look for in candidates. And it can come out in various ways. I think it's often you hear it in when they may describe their why. Why did they apply for this job? Why breakthrough? Why a center for children with autism? Because again, when I come across applications, or even if one were to scan the resumes of our team, you would see that they come from many different walks of life. They've studied different degrees, diplomas. It may be definitely some specialize in behavioral sciences. Many also come from, let's say, a general psychology background, maybe sociology, social service work, social work as well. The odd one, it's maybe not as common, like you mentioned, but they do come. But it's that. It's also they may have different experiences. Many I find do also. It's one of their for the instructor position, so like the entry level position. It's often like one of their first jobs. So maybe they've been working retail, but or maybe their work that they've been working summer camps, like seasonal type of work too. You see that a lot. And again, so it's great. I call it an asset when they have, let's say, experience working with children with special needs, but it's not mandatory. It's not a must-have. Because again, you can teach it, and many do. Some may have experience and may be familiar with the field of ABA, and that's why one of the driving reasons they even applied for the job. Yeah. Some have just a genuine interest in actually learning more. They've heard about it from maybe when they were in school. There was another a student, a fellow peer that had autism, and in their class, and maybe they have a family member who's received ABA, and they saw the power of that, and they want to be a part of a team that facilitates that change. So I'd say that so the passion for the work, definitely, like this, like really wanting to make a meaningful change in the lives of children, teens. I think with us too, I think it's really great or an asset when there's that interest in working with children of various ages, because our staff too, they'll work across both centers. It's not just with just in the lines of like early intervention or working with the younger kids. It's also all the way up to the teens, or it's not just the teens. Sometimes people might prefer, and that's great. That it's good to have preferences, and it's good to know that. And then lastly, I would say flexibility is a really important quality in staff. I'd say that I look for in staff as well, because no 2 days are alike, and it can be tough. And so just being flexible, understanding that, sometimes kids call in sick in the morning. We find out, you try to avoid that. You try to do as much planning as you can as possible, but we don't live in a perfect world. Even staff get sick sometimes, or they go on vacation, and so there's scheduling changes. And so I know during our recruitment process, we try to be as transparent as possible when it comes to the scheduling aspect of work, and that it's maybe not as standard looking as some other professions or jobs out there. So I think flexibility and I'll say one other one, eagerness to learn. So it's like, open to feedback and being eager. So of course we want to be eager to learn, but then we also want you to be open to receiving and utilizing feedback, because I think it's through the combination of those 3 or 4 factors now that I've mentioned that I think you see the greatest outcomes from clients when you have that on your team. And I'm proud to say I feel like that's what makes up our team. It's not that we have every graduate from the behavioral sciences program, which is a wonderful program to have, and the staff come in with wonderful skills there too. But again, we can teach the technical skills. I can't teach passion. I can't teach someone to come to the session and with a genuine joy for the work. Um, yeah, passion, wanting to be there with the child.
Yeah. So passion, the flexibility, eagerness to learn, responsiveness to feedback,
Yeah.
all of that is like really grinding it out too, right? You got to be in there every day. And those, it will lead to the fulfillments of wonderful, joyful moments, but
Yeah.
you got to work to get there. And, then on the flip side, we do offer very extensive training in
Yeah.
terms of how to develop those skills. We don't just like put them in chair and say, see you later. There's a lot of skill development in order to support them, but we're looking for longevity and we're looking for to build a career. And then, at the higher levels of supervision and whatnot, those people come with a lot of extensive experience, clinical supervised field work.
Yes.
They've been mentored, they've had educational requirements. Before that entry level position, like so many of us, even including myself, I was, second year psych student, and you develop the skills and all the early studies. That's pretty much what everybody was in those studies that demonstrated such strong effectiveness were people who really had the passion, learned, okay, I thought the session was going to be this way, but now it looks like this because, you're also responsive to the child's needs. So these are also, I think, really important things for parents to hear because understandably so, again, you may be worried about the technical aspects, right? But keep in mind for this type of service, you have supervisors who are steering the ship.
Yes.
And those are the people making the clinical decisions, the clinical judgment, customizing the program, orienting that ship as they should be. And the implementers are the ones that you need to be ready to come back the next day, lots of learning trials, and going to be technically sound at what they do, but they need to be in it for the long haul. And you want them to be happy with, coming to work and working with your child. It's very important. You can't teach that.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and and you make a really good point about when it comes to management or the supervisory team. Like that's a whole other level, right? When it comes to qualifications and the work that it even takes to get there. So I don't want to take away from that either. I want to highlight that that's really and a nice thing about I don't not everyone might know this at Breakthrough, but um, many of our supervisor like when I think about the team the ones like, on the supervisory team, like many of them, not all now, they started off at that entry level position, and over the years, they've taken a keen interest to the field, whether they were familiar with it or not starting off at Breakthrough, and they've done the legwork. They've gone back and they've gotten this particular certification, their BC.
It's amazing. It's amazing to see that evolution and growth and that ripple effect that we can service more children and help them. So, last question. You've had so many experiences within the field of ABA and working with kids with autism. What do you want people to know about ABA and or autism, the general world to know about what we do and, you know, the lives that we impact?
I would like everyone to know that ABA, applied behavior analysis, truly is life-changing treatment, and I wish that more families had access to the treatment just because I know the power. I've seen the power of it. I've seen what it can do, like I've mentioned before. I've seen the impact, the positive impact it can have on a child's life, a family's life, and then, like, again, what I imagine to be a community. And so it is transformative, and I wish more kids had access to it.
Amazing. Power of ABA to transform, empower, help kids and their families lead their best lives. It's a remarkably beautiful thing. Thank you so much for being here. Another thing that I would wish for families to be able to experience is wonderful people like you in their lives. You're sincerely a blessing for every family and child that you're able to work with and their staff. And we need more Pieras in the world. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your experiences.
You're welcome. Thanks again for having me.